Hey guys, so this is What If the Predators Were in the MCU Part 2. Now guys, this video was asked about by the same person or multiple other people multiple times. And basically, let's get started guys. So basically, this is What If the Predators Were in the MCU Part 2. Now, I last left off near pretty much the middle of Civil War. Now basically, the Predator would have came through halfway the middle of Civil War asking for help on the Avengers Tower. Now basically, I think at that point it would be about near pretty much what was it? Because I ended off Age of Ultron, so it would be near where pretty much the Avengers mansions are, the pretty much base they're at. It would be near that area. Basically, at that point, it being kind of a big deal. And basically, the Avengers would be split in two, and they would be fighting against each other. Now, basically, the Predator would have asked for pretty much their help, and basically doing Civil War. Basic Civil War. I'm actually gonna be ending it off there because the Predator would ask for help, but he would also step out of the whole entire situation, not helping the Avengers doing the rest of Civil War. Now, so we move on to Endgame and Infinity War. Now, near the end of Civil War, the Predator doesn't really care about what the humans are doing. He needs them to know and prepare them and to ally them to basically be ready for the Predator invasion. Now, what would have happened here on Thanos' part? Thanos would actually run into the Predators going towards Earth, where after Thanos started, pretty much taking out Thor's ship and pretty much killed Loki and all the others, and folded Hulk, and Hulk was teleported to Earth. Now pretty much, Thanos would have set a course to Earth from his Dark Order, and the Dark Order would have came across pretty much what was it? The Dark Order would have came across the Predators. Now, pretty much they would have allied the Predators because the Dark Order knew about the Predator species, and the Predators were actually very, pretty much, what was it? Were very, pretty much, what was it? They communicated with multiple other planets, and some of those planets were the same home planets from all the other people in the Dark Order. So basically, they knew about the Predators, and basically, Predators weren't that kind to other species other than pretty much their species or different versions of their species. Now, basically, they made an alliance, pretty much them saying that we're just here for the Infinity Stones and to split the world and blah blah blah. We're just here for the Infinity Stones. And basically, the Predators didn't really care for the Infinity Stones, since they modified vibranium to be so strong that in theory they could make a vibranium knife to cut an Infinity Stone in two. Now, basically, or to crush an Infinity Stone if they made a vibranium hammer, because they enhanced vibranium farther than pretty much vibranium on Earth, but they still have the same strength, and vibranium on Earth can still cut through pretty much Predator technology. Even though like 50% of all Predator's technology now is all vibranium or enhanced vibranium. Enhanced vibranium is just a vibranium stronger than pretty much Uru, the same the same metal Thor's hammer is made out of. Now basically, their metal can be broke, kind of like Hela broke Thor's hammer. Hela could, punch through pretty much a modified vibranium, pretty much shield a Predator would have and stuff like that. And also, Predators have enhanced vibranium to a point to make energy constructs out of them from the kinetic force. Now, basically, doing all of that, basically, what would happen is basically for on Earth, it would only be about 1% of enhanced vibranium that the Predators actually left behind, doing well near the end of this what if, near the end of Infinity War. But let's just get back to the main timeline. And basically, what would happen in this part? Basically, pretty much what was it? Basically, what would happen doing all of this? Basically, what was it? After T'Challa or whatever, I don't even really care. Sorry. Basically, never mind. So yeah, I got it right. So basically, what would happen with the Predators, or the main Predator, that would be the last Predator in this one, because I only did one on the first one from the first movie and the second one from the second movie. And basically, this is probably my favorite design of the Predator, other than the Predator from the Predators movie, the Chief one. Now basically, the Predator or the enhanced Predator that was trying to help humanity, he would have actually brought the Predator killer suit or whatever. Now, pretty much Tony would take this suit and basically would have modified it. Basically, he would have modified it, and over pretty much the years, eventually Thanos would have shown up. Now, Thanos would have shown up, and with his Black Order, and also on the other side of the Earth, or not on the other side of Earth, still on New York, the Predators would have shown up in the same ship, a big pretty much a big ship at the same about the same pretty much length and width as pretty much what was it Thanos' ship, but just holding more Predators in it. It'll be about 6,000 Predators in there, pretty much all of them being highly trained and modified. Not all of them being modified to a point of the pretty much ultimate Predator. The Predator that killed this Predator in the movie it was shown. Basically, that Predator would be leading the war, and that Predator would be modified enough to be as strong as a Titan and be as durable as Thanos and be able to take the Infinity Stone. So pretty much it would be this Predator would be modified to a point where it'd be able to go toe to toe with Thanos, even with Thanos having at least like 3 Infinity Stones. But beyond that, the Predator would have been knocked out cold or killed if Thanos went up against the Predator with like at least 4 or 6. And basically, what have happened? The main ultimate Predator would have jumped down with 6 other pretty much modified Predators about pretty much about the same height as the pretty much about the same about like 6 feet tall, and basically they would have been weaker than the pretty much Alpha Predator because they used a lot of resources to modify that one Predator, and it took them a couple years to make a second one. But they couldn't recreate it because that Predator had a certain gene in his blood. Now, basically, the other Predators, they were just modified to be pretty much as flexible and as pretty much Predators are already pretty strong to begin with. But the other modified Predators have the same type of power set as this Predator. About the same strength, but faster, stronger, and better coordinated in athleticism. Basically, they're like about 1/5 as athletic as Spider-Man or Daredevil. And basically, they also have increased strength and stamina more farther than the average Predator. And it's already impressive what a Predator can do, but a Predator that's modified to a point of being near Venom or Spider-Man strength would be very, strong. And basically, they would have landed down there, and pretty much the 3 other Predators would have, walked off and would have started to look for the other Predator. Now, doing this after Thanos showed up, pretty much doing this, Tony would have shown up with the other Predator because Tony would actually, ally the Predator and become friends with him as some sorts. And basically, Tony would have been called in by Bruce, and basically Tony would tell Bruce about, Civil War and all the other stuff, and pretty much the Predator would be looking out, and he would sense this, because the modified Predators, and also just Predators have better senses than humans. So he would sense this, and he would look out, and then the ship would have started making noise, or would have started, attracting attention and making people run away. Now, Doctor Strange, Wu, Spidey, Doctor Strange, Wu, Bruce, and the rest of them, and pretty much, what was it? The Predator would have walked out there, and they would have seen them. The Black Order would have shown up, and the Squidward-looking guy and the Rock guy, or just the big muscle guy, they would have shown up and would have asked them, to hand over the Time Stone. Basically, them being there for Doctor Strange, or the Time Stone. And basically, the Predator would have looked at this, and he would have sensed two other Predators behind them. And basically, the 3 other Predators would be pretty much coordinating, or pretty much escorting, or just keeping close towards the 2 Black Orders, pretty much keeping them back up. And the main Alpha Predator, and also the 2 others, would have been watching from afar. And basically, the Predator would have get into the fighting stance, and Tony would have been suiting up after Bruce wouldn't, Hulk out. And pretty much Bruce and the rest of them, backed up. Doctor Strange, Tony, and the Predator started getting into a fighting stance, and they started to fight. Now, basically, all the way through the fight, the Predator was knocked into a wall. Now, basically, doing this, when the Predator started the fight, the 2 other Predators would be about near the time where pretty much Tony was occupied fighting the muscle guy, and basically pretty much knock off knockoff MCU Squidward would have been, fighting Doctor Strange. And basically, the two other Predators would have been fighting the other Predator, and this Predator would have modified his armor with normal vibranium on Earth, making its armor just a little bit more denser than the other, a little bit more stronger than the other Predator's armor. And basically, he would have been moving a lot more faster than them since he was pretty much engineered to be mainly focused off speed and strength and more like a Spider-Man type of built Predator. And basically, he would have been flipping and running all around away from pretty much them and would have jumped onto them multiple times, throwing them into cars, breaking their necks, pretty much throwing them in the ground. And one Predator's mask fell off. And the Predator said sorry and pretty much grabbed Tina's or its pretty much pinchers on his face and ripped them from his spine. No, from his skull. Pretty much green ooze or green blood pretty much started gushing everywhere, and he threw the pinchers down to the ground. I pretty much kicked the other Predator into a truck. Basically, the truck being near the edge of a pretty much bridge, because they would be fighting all around the city. Eventually, them going to a bridge area. Now, basically, the Predator would have walked off, and he would have been stopped by the Alpha Predator. But the other two Predators on the roof would have been watching from afar, being told by the Alpha Predator to watch and learn. Alpha Predator would have looked at the other Predator, or pretty much Predator, because I'm just gonna say Predator, and basically, the good Predator would have looked up to the Alpha, and for narrating purposes, Alpha Predator would be pretty much named or addressed as Alpha, and pretty much Predator, the good Predator I'm basing the story off, or the pretty much help to Earth would be addressed as just Predator. Now, basically, Predator would have looked towards the Alpha, and the Alpha would have taken out the iconic Predator blades from the forearms, and would have smiled at him, being very creepy, watching the Predator's face smile. Now, they would have started to fight back and forth, throwing punches, slashes, and kicks. At this point, the other Predator was losing from a long shot, just completely being folded, destroyed, punched around like a rag doll, because the Alpha would have been still so strong. Now, Predator would have been running around trying to get a safe place, because he knew he couldn't beat Alpha without any type of extra power, because he only had the pretty much normal gear of a Predator. The shoulder cannon, the pretty much blades, and all the other stuff, the bogey stick and everything else. Basically, him just having enhanced armor, him being able to take more hits than a normal Predator wasn't, modified like the others. The others were just modified to be more of powerhouses and weren't really made for athleticism. But Alpha was made for both, for athleticism, strength, agility, speed, and maxified his senses to Daredevil's senses. But since Daredevil's senses are so strong, and so strong in fact that if you didn't know this, cotton balls feel like sandpaper to him. So basically, only downside to Alpha is that basically the slightest pretty much touch by anything on Earth would change his senses would fill his senses very badly. Now, basically, since he had this sense power or pretty much downfall, they put bionics in his body to pretty much dampen his senses to normal Predator senses. Now, basically, that would be more it would be in handy later on in the story. Now, basically, keep that in mind. Basically, the Predator would have been running around trying to get a safe place away from Alpha. Pretty much seeing Alpha getting angrier and angrier, flipping over cars, smacking him out of his way like Hulk type, and pretty much being on beast mode, because Alpha was incredibly strong, about near the same strength as Hulk. And also the same strength as Thanos, or just the exact same strength as Thanos. And basically, he would have been jumping to roof, just grinding his feet into the roof, and pretty much using his claws to grind his feet into the roof and jump to roof, basically taking concrete with him. And actually, before he, went to another building, jumping roof to roof, he threw concrete towards Predator, trying to get him down, trying to knock him out or trying to just kill him with some concrete. Now, basically, they started running around. Eventually, Predator would have ran into Tony and seen Tony basically, would have ran into Tony and would have pretty much seen Spidey show up and save Tony. Now, basically, the other Alpha would have been running straight towards Predator and would have tackled him down to the floor near the park area where Tony was. Tony saw this and rushed in, pretty much shooting a huge beam of energy towards Alpha, shooting him a couple miles away into the city. And basically, Tony helped up Predator and pretty much said, "Are you okay?" Pretty much him saying yes. Now, if you don't know, if you haven't watched part one, basically this Predator can talk in human language by some sort of mimicker in his mask, and also he has made some pretty much bionics to his body to make him speak other languages on Earth and also different alien languages as well. And basically, Predator and Tony would have looked up, seeing pretty much Doctor Strange being captured by the two other Predators that were according Alpha, and basically saw pretty much the off-brand MCU Squidward taking Doctor Strange to the ship. Now, Spidey would have been told by Tony to stop it, and basically Spidey would have, pretty much swing after Doctor Strange and would have been caught up into the atmosphere. Tony would have sent his suit to help Peter, but Peter would have still snuck onto the ship, and basically the Predator would have gotten into a miniature ship, basically a modified ship, different from his original ship, basically it being kind of like basically his ship would be something like a motorcycle like this, basically it having its own type of oxygen field around it, pretty much having some of invisible field around the whole pretty much motorcycle, having oxygen pumped out of the motorcycle, basically a force field around to keep the oxygen in. Basically the Predator and pretty much keeping Tony alive. Basically, Tony wouldn't really need it since his mask was up. Basically, them just flying out and pretty much flying into flying to the ship. Now, basically, the Predator would have autopiloted the motorcycle to keep close towards the ship, and basically they would have snuck in together. Tony getting a call from Pepper, basically him saying the same thing to Pepper. Now, basically, the Predator would have said, "I'm going to get you out of here alive, Tony." Basically, them get going and them eventually finding or seeing Doctor Strange getting tortured. Now, Spidey would have shunned it behind them. Basically, Predator being kind of, very much, offensive, about to punch Spidey until he was told by, Tony that it was okay. Now, basically, the Predator would have looked closer and basically, pretty much, what was it? Basically, Peter would have pretty much brought up the Alien movies. Now, basically, since Aliens, maybe in the future, I don't know if you guys want me to make this Predator, Aliens may be canon in this Predator in this Predator What If. So basically, for the Alien movie, for this timeline, or for this What If, the Alien movie, the aliens would just look different. Basically, them being very accurate to the actual aliens that do exist, but basically pretty much the Alien movies just having the look different though. And basically they would have gotten ready, and with the Q ship, basically they would be inside the Q ship, or pretty much Thanos' ship, and they would have been, they would have executed their plan and would have gone after pretty much the Dark Order member and would have send him off to basically into space, pretty much making a hole in the ship, and pretty much Tony covering it up with his pretty much his technology or its fluid in his suit. I don't know what it's called. Basically, they would have flown back and they would have made a plan. Pretty much Tony having an argument with pretty much Doctor Strange, and pretty much the Predator just watching it and saying, "Get out the way." Pretty much him riding the ship saying that, "I know how to fly this." Now, they would have been on their course, and we would have switched back to Earth. Now, since the Predators would be on Earth, this story would actually change a little bit more than original. Now, doing this, basically, since Earth was changing, we would switch to the other Dark Order, basically the two other members of the Dark Order, basically going after Wanda. But they would be escorted alongside Alpha. Now Alpha would be there watching from the sidelines, but when Captain America, Falcon, and everybody else shows up, Alpha comes out of nowhere and kicks Falcon down to the ground, about to kill him. Alpha Predator would have been slamming pretty much. Now doing this, basically, the Alpha Predator would have slammed down pretty much Falcon's head. I was about to kill him, pretty much about to stab him in the back. Now basically, the Alpha Predator would have been more accurate picture of what he looks like. So basically, Alpha was pretty much about to kill Falcon. When Cap saw this, Cap was fighting with Black Midnight, or Dark, what was it, Dark Midnight. Now basically, they were fighting back and forth, and basically, pretty much out of nowhere, Black Widow came out, throwing some sort of smoke bomb into Alpha's mouth. And this was a smoke bomb, pretty much made by Predator, because Predator was kind of like a double supplier for both pretty much sides of the whole entire, Civil War Accords thing. Basically, much he kept tabs on Black Widow and pretty much Falcon and nobody else. Basically, him giving them, weapons, supplies, and stuff like that to keep themselves safe if they ever came across a predator. Since predator readings or predator sightings or alien type sightings are being more frequent around the world a couple of years after the Avengers were disbanded. And basically doing this, pretty much the smoke bomb was to stunt the strength and the senses of a predator for about a couple minutes and keep them mobilized. And basically it would work mainly on predators that were incredibly modified, that weren't all, original, predator, and just not original predator, skin, flesh, and bones. Now basically, Alpha fell down to the ground coughing up green smoke, and basically he passed out for a few minutes. And basically, Dark Order, pretty much they left after pretty much they were injured, and basically, actually teleported near Alpha and teleported away, saying this isn't over. And basically, they would have taken Wanda and Vision, and pretty much we skip back to, after that, we don't really exactly skip back, but we skip back to pretty much the trio, and and we skip back to the, not the trio, but like the triplets or whatever. Basically, Predator would have been pretty much, flying the ship pretty nicely. Now basically, he would have been flying the ship, and he would be looking on his hologram side on his gauntlet, and basically would have been seeing pretty much an alien GPS type of map, and seeing that the ship was pretty much autopiloted to Titan. So he went to Titan thinking and knowing that Thanos was going to be there since it was autopiloted to go to Titan. He landed the ship actually neatly and actually didn't crash it like before, and he actually, landed it very neatly. And pretty much landed pretty neatly and sturdy, and basically stopped it there, saying, "We're good." Basically, them getting off the ship and them running into the Guardians of the Galaxy. The Guardians of the Galaxy busting into the ship, and basically them pretty much going up against them. Now, they would have been fighting a little bit longer, and one of them would have hit us pretty much a couple of, pretty much Star would be shooting, some of them would be hitting, and most of them would have actually messed up most of the technology that would have been messing up a lot of stuff. Basically, the ship being incredibly damaged from the inside out. The ship still having at least like 60 years of fuel left to fly in space, but after that it was useless. So the ship was pretty messed up because they were fighting for a really long time because the Predator, and they were really cut off by the Predator. So because pretty much in this universe, Star-Lord, the Guardians of the Galaxy did run into the second Predator in my first wave. The Predator from the main Predator from the Predator 2 movie, they did run into that Predator in space when that Predator was, pretty much carrying the vibranium to get to his home planet. They ran into him. He knocked the crud out of most of them and escaped. Basically, them not really seeing anything else from that guy. Now, basically, for Predator, Predator was looking at them, pretty much trying to stop the situation. Basically, pretty much pretty much they have a little conversation and they say that we're the Avengers, blah blah blah, and also the Predator is a official member to the Avengers because he's been on Earth for years helping the Avengers, and he is an official member of the Avengers. Like down on paper, he's an official member on the Avengers. And basically, they would have stopped fighting and they would have made a plan. Now, Doctor Strange would have looked at the possibilities and basically would have said, "Well, we win one possibility." Now they would have, gone with the same type of plan, but they would actually have a better plan because the Predator would have known more about Titans or pretty much Thanos' species because he was, pretty much Predator was a really on his planet. You would say that he was in human word. You would say that he was a super, nerd and other alien species. And basically, Predator got a plan, and basically their plan was exactly the same. Only thing that changed is that when they were pretty much getting the gauntlet off, Predator would have used some of his tech to boost put some pretty much boosters on the gauntlet to blast it off of Thanos' hand, and he also would have used a gravity booster that he would have modified, and he would have had because gravity boosters would be pretty much on Predator Island or Predator Planet, pretty much like flea market type of technology. They just got them off of flea market type places on Predator Island, and basically he would have had some of them, and he would have re-engineered them to go inwards and to gravitate inwards on a person if it was ever put on a person or a being like Thanos. So basically, Thanos' organs would be compressed onto each other. So basically, he would have. So when they were pretty much pulling off the stuff and trying to get off, Predator's about to put on the gravity stuff on Thanos' chest to try to give him back if he ever got loose. Him having it tucked away in his back pouch. Basically, him just helping the rest of the team try to pull the gauntlet off. Now, basically, they were inches. They were way more the edge of the gauntlet, the top of it. It was right on Thanos' fingertips. They literally got the glove completely off, and pretty much it was inches away from Thanos' hand. His fingertips were the only thing that was still in. His fingertips on the end of the gauntlet was the only thing that was still in it. Now basically, pretty much Star-Lord got away, messed the whole mission up, and hit Thanos upside the head, not using his gun like an actual gun, and pretty much Thanos started running around going crazy and grabbed the gauntlet from all of them. But Predator didn't let go. Predator kept on and threw both of the pretty much gravity clumps on Thanos' chest, but not on the back because he had to put it on the chest and the back so the gravity would be evened out. But basically, Thanos started feeling a lot of pain in his chest, but used the reality spell or used the reality stone to basically turn the gravity boosters into mush and make them fall off his body. Now, basically, Predator looked up to pretty much Thanos, and Thanos said goodbye, pretty much kicking Predator into a bunch of pretty much mountains near on pretty much a couple of rocks, pretty much knocking him out cold. Basically, his mask still recording the whole thing, and his mask recording the fight between pretty much Iron Man and Thanos. Now, they were going back and forth, and eventually, pretty much what was it? Iron Man was stabbed in the stomach. Now, basically, he was left there, and Doctor Strange still gave up the Time Stone. Basically, Predator waking up a few minutes after Thanos snapped his fingers. Now, basically, on pretty much on the Wakandan battlefield, since Alpha will be with the black pretty much order, basically he would be watching the mindless creatures or black orders or Thanos' pretty much bogies or whatever going inwards and pretty much trying to go up against pretty much Thanos. Basically, they were going back and forth against Thanos, punching him, blah blah blah, all that other stuff. And basically, all pretty much Wakanda's shields went up and letting all the people in, letting all the monsters in. They started fighting them back and forth. Now Alpha was watching this from afar, basically smirking very grossly, since Predator's not really Predator's only yet with a phase 2 smirk. Now basically, he watched closely and he got into the fight. Now he was running into the fight when Thor showed up. Now Thor showed up and Thor went crazy and he just showed up, bawling it out. But basically, Alpha jumped in and pretty much tackled Thor down to the ground and started to beat the ever living dust off of his face. But they just beat him. Now Thor was able to get the upper hand since he still had the power of Stormbreaker and he still unlocked the power of his full powers since Ragnarok. Basically grabbed Predator and threw him down to the ground. Alpha and pretty much threw him down to the ground. Now basically Thor was about to end Alpha, but Alpha grabbed Stormbreaker and ripped it out of, or just pulled it out of Thor's hands, and pretty much kicked Thor into a nearby tree. Pretty much Alpha grabbing Thor by the neck and about to stab him with Stormbreaker, when out of nowhere Black Panther slashes a huge nasty pretty much scar right on Alpha's chest. Alpha falls onto the ground, dropping the Stormbreaker, and Thor grabs Stormbreaker and cuts Alpha's head off. Alpha falls down to the ground and, is dead. Or it seems. And basically, Thor runs off, pretty much eventually, still in time, still going up against Thanos and throwing the Stormbreaker, not in his head, not on the gauntlet, but just in his chest. Like, that's the stupidest thing ever. But basically, throws it in Thanos' chest and tries to kill him slowly. But Thanos actually should have gone for the head and snaps his fingers. Now, basically, that's where I'm going to leave off here. Now, originally, I was going to do this on Endgame, but Infinity War was pretty, scratch it, and let's do Endgame too, because I have enough time. So after the events of Infinity War, after half of the humanity was snapped away, or half of life was snapped away and balanced the universe, basically Predator wasn't snapped away. He was left there with Gamora, and pretty much, he was left there with Nebula, Tony, and basically he helped them out. And pretty much he was modified to not really for him to hold his breath or not to live off pretty much oxygen for a pretty long time. So he was modified enough so he wouldn't keep up take as much oxygen as a normal human would take, but like a small amount. Now basically, pretty much he helped them out, and he had some tech on him that could help Tony and actually heal Tony's scar completely with some vibranium Predator like healing meds. Basically, the day kit. Now Predators had first aid kits, and Predator had a first aid kit. Now basically, he used this to stitch up Tony's wounds and used a little bit of an ointment that was pretty much a new ointment made out of some sort of vibranium, pretty much a component deep within vibranium that the Predators were able to get enough of, but more vibranium. At this point, since the Predators, enhanced vibranium so much, during when Alpha was killed, Alpha had a lot of vibranium, pretty much bionics, or enhanced vibranium bionics in his blood and all sorts of other stuff. So Wakanda was able to salvage and actually upgraded all of their, pretty much, was able to upgrade all of their, pretty much, vibranium, vibranium to basically the same levels as pretty much them being able to enhance their civilization to Predator levels, pretty much flying cars, stuff like pretty much mind-blowing stuff. The enhanced vibranium they got off of pretty much Alpha's body was crazy. They lost some of Alpha's body parts through some sort of retrieve situation with the Predators trying to get into Wakanda, and they did succeed getting some of Alpha's pretty much leftover corpses, and that's all they needed to do what they were going to do. Now we skip over that story real quick. After us knowing that vibranium, the modified vibranium is now in the hands of Wakanda, and they have found out a way to modify vibranium themselves, so they don't need to take it from Predators. Now basically, with the Predators, with their modified vibranium, and it still is some more modified vibranium that the pretty much Wakanda hasn't activated yet. And basically, they start getting, pretty much with what was it? With basically Predator, his pretty much spaceship or his space motorcycle was following them the whole time. So basically, it showed up, and it was able to make pretty much it was able to shapeshift because Predators, since their technology is so enhanced, their ships are now shape shifting or more organic like vibranium. It was able to shapeshift into some sort of big, kind of like a car type, motorcycle type of hovering bike. Now, basically, since the all of the Predators pretty much small types of pretty much vehicles like motorcycles or they're pretty much hover bikes and stuff like that. Since Predators have a lot more technology now, basically Predators would have technology that could shapeshift into two different forms, a bigger form and a smaller form. And basically, the motorcycle was able to make a pretty much a oxygen shield, and he was able to hook up the motorcycle's power source to the ship, and basically was able to blast it off. He used the Guardians ship because it was the smallest one. It would pretty much not use as much power as the other ship. Now, basically, they left, and basically they were on their way. Now, they would actually arrive to Earth, not being saved by Captain Marvel. They would arrive themselves to the Avengers pretty much area or mansion, pretty much on the same spot where they were pretty much dropped off in the beginning of Endgame. Now, basically, they dropped off there, and basically, pretty much everybody was surprised to see him. Pretty much, Pepper joined arms with Tony, and basically, Predator came off the ship and basically was met with a pretty much a big hug with what was it, uh Cap, because Cap did have a kind of a relationship with did have a had a relationship, like a best friend relationship with Predator, because Predator did keep tabs on mainly a majority of the pretty much heroes that went rogue doing the whole entire pretty much thing with the Accords. Now, basically, doing all of this, pretty much they would have been pretty much offset. Now, basically, we skip a few years in the future, and we skip a few years seeing all the Avengers pretty much have their, have their own lives after the events of the finger snapping of Thanos. Now, basically, what would a Predator would be doing on Earth? He would actually, since the Predator's invasion plan was actually failed because all these soldiers that were sent to Earth were actually snapped away, and only about 10 Predators were left on planet Earth. And basically, since the Predators that were pretty much driving the ships that brought the Predators to Earth were pretty much snapped away, the ships crashed, and multiple different pretty much pieces of what was it, Predator tech was scattered around Earth, and basically people started salvaging it and started pretty much going type of, well, pretty much started to do, what was it? Pretty much started to, well, basically, Predator would have made pretty much the Guardian ship and would have been able to forge it and merge it with his Predator ship, making it a bigger type of home type of ship. Him living in that ship, eating in that ship, and also training outside of that ship in a forest area. And him using his motorcycle ship, and he was able to pretty much replenish its energy supply and pretty much used it to actually go around the world, stopping the whole entire, the Predator tech going all around the Earth. And basically, he stopped most of this time going like a vigilante, a Batman type of thing, pretty much beating the absolute ever living crud out of guys that pretty much got their hands on Predator tech, and pretty much was able to get all the Predator tech and save it up and pretty much get it away from all of Earth, and was able to pretty much erase all traces of pretty much documents trying to recreate the pretty much technology and everything. People still had memories of it, but Predator was able to make sort of a small type of, temporarily memory stopping thing. He was able to use some sort of light capture beam to hypnotize people into forgetting about a couple things for at least a couple months. Now, basically, Predator would have been, is pretty much would have ended his mission, and he would have been wandering around, around the world, thinking about how will the world, what do now? Pretty much the world is, well, faded away. Basically, the Predator goes on a, kind of a chunky thing, and actually, pretty much, just walks around, just becomes, kind of a outsider. Pretty much him just staying on a forest area or an island and just feeding off of the creatures there, hunting them, and just keeping on to his game. Pretty much going Green Arrow type of style on the island. Basically, him just having chill days and just relaxing. Now, basically, one day he would have been relaxing and he would be caught off guard when Cap would have shown up. And Cap would have shown up, and this would be when basically Cap would have asked Predator to come with them because we found Thanos. Like, pretty much, Predator would have said, what I'm trying to think in here is that why are we going to stop him and change what just happened? Basically, Cap says, what do you mean? Basically, Predator says, would you still want to do this if Thanos didn't snap away any of the people you knew? Would you be mad? Would you still want to stop it? Pretty much, Cap says, of course I do. Innocent lives are taken away, erased from existence. There's no, past for that. Now, basically, Predator thinks about it more, thinking about maybe this is the way to help humanity. Your resources have been thriving since, and overpopulation has been, exactly revenged. Overpopulation, or too many humans on your planet, that problem is now erased. Your planet might thrive and might survive and become better. It already is, slowly. All I'm trying to say here is that Thanos may have done a good thing to get rid of unnecessary lives on planet Earth and save Earth's, resources. Basically, Cap says, what has this island done to you? You were so courageous, powerful. You were so heroic. And now you're just, basically, Predator says, what? Now I'm just what? I'm still on my game. I can still drop you anytime I want. Basically, Cap saying, you think that? Basically, them getting into a fighting stance. And pretty much Cap arrived with a couple others, basically, Cap getting into a fighting stance with pretty much, getting into a fighting stance with Predator. Now, pretty much, Cap would have said, I'm not gonna fight you. If you're coming, you're coming. We'll send you the coordinates We'll send you the coordinates. Basically, Predator thinking about it, and him, for once, getting suited up again. Predator gets suited up again, but his suit is modified just a little bit. His suit is made out of the newest type of modified vibranium that Wakanda has made, because pretty much Predator has gone back and forth with Wakanda and the island he's living on, because he has became, kind of friends with, Shuri, or the people that are left, or the pretty much people that are left on Wakanda after the snap. And basically, when pretty much Predator would have gone to the planet in his ship, he would arrive there, seeing pretty much the Avengers go into a shed type of area on the planet, and would have walked in there, seeing Thor walking in the same exact moment where Thor chopped off Thanos' head. And basically, Predator would have said, "What have you done?" Basically, him looking at Predator's head. At Thanos' head. He would have grabbed it, basically saying, "Huh." Pretty much walking off and grabbing the head with him. Basically, Cap saying, "What are you doing with that?" Pretty much Predator saying, "I like souvenirs, like my other, brethren." And basically him grabbing the head and also pretty much walking off. Him saying, "There's nothing here." He destroyed the Infinity Stones, and he can't reverse what he did. Basically, Cap saying, You really don't think what he did was wrong? Basically, Predator looking at him saying, well, what I'm really think about it, your supplies are replenished. Your planet is coming back to life, but your planet is deserty, ghost-like. But eventually that will stop. Because over a couple of years, your planet will repopulate and have the same amount of humans it had before. It's not just a matter of time. The same people won't be there, but who cares? Some people might be born with no parent to be there because their parents are faded away. Also, quick question, guys. A quick question. Stop the water for a little bit. Do you guys think if a pregnant lady was snapped away but her baby wasn't, would the baby just fall out of the dust of the snapped away person, or what? Like, what would have happened? What would have happened? Like, and also, since in WandaVision, the pretty much what was it? Pretty much the doctors and whatever, they pretty much were going crazy because like multiple people started fading or snapping back into reality in the hospital. But what if a surgery was going on in a surgery bed, but halfway through the surgery the person was snapped away, but they were doing another surgery on the same table and the person was snapped in the same place, in the same type of space where the person was? What about people that were on a plane and they were snapped away? Would they just snap in the middle of the sky? And also people that were scuba diving, they just snap in the middle of the ocean? Like, it's just, and just a lot of things that would go wrong. Like, what if people were like, what if people were, what was it, in a road, but they snap back in the road and they get ran over? Like, it makes no point if people in wrong situations were snapped away or dusted and they reappeared in that same area but died shortly after since they were in a dangerous area. But whatever. Basically, Predator left, taking Thanos' skull, skinning it, boning it, and basically having a Thanos skull on his collection. Predator would have had Thanos' skull pretty much just displayed on his, wall of pretty much, captures and hunts. Predator would have been walking around his ship and would have gotten another call. Basically, having a call by Cap and him being taken to pretty much the area and basically him running into Clint or Ant-Man. Now, basically, Ant-Man would have explained the whole entire time machine thing, and they would have asked, they would have gone around and they would have asked Tony. Now, basically, they would have taken Predator because Predator would have a good relationship with Tony, and pretty much Tony would have called Predator a few times through the years with pretty much on the island. Predator would have shown up at pretty much Tony's pretty much place, and pretty much Tony would have said, "Hey, you're here for dinner or whatever." Basically, him hugging Predator. But shortly after, the rest of the crew showing up asking Tony for himself. Tony declined, saying that I have a family and I don't want to be an Avenger anymore, and Iron Man's dead, blah blah blah. Pretty much him saying, "You guys can go. Predator, you can stay if you want to." And basically, they leave, basically saying that, it's pointless. And basically, Predator saying, "Tony, think about it. We really need your help. It can save the world. It can stop everything that happened. People can come back to life. People can be with their families. Think about, what if you were snapped away then? What if you were snapped away, Tony? What if you were snapped away right now? And your daughter couldn't be grown. Your daughter couldn't be raised with a dad." Now, basically, Tony thinks about this, and basically, Predator says that, "Think about it, Tony. Don't want you to do it if you don't want to. But if you're really sure you don't want to, it's up to you. See ya, good friend. See ya, old friend." Basically, patting Tony on the back and saying, "See you later." And basically, he would have walked off, and he would have gotten on his pretty much ship motorcycle. Predator would have drone back to his pretty much to his basically quarters or his island, back to his main ship. And basically, would have, went there, would have just stayed there. Now, eventually, they would have, called back in Predator. Predator would have helped him with the whole entire time machine thing with his technology. Basically, them just being one little fragment away from pretty much, executing the time machine. Because Predator helped that extra bit, and actually, if Predator had a little bit more tech, he could have pulled off time travel by himself. Now, pretty much, Tony still showed up, pretty much giving back Cap his shield, and basically them getting ready. Now, basically, they would have gotten ready, and they would have gotten ready for time travel. Now, they would actually send. There are basically two teams of pretty much the Avengers. Now through the pretty much now for the what was it? Now for the teams. Now basically for the teams with Tony, Tony, and Ant-Man going on the same pretty much trip, they would pretty much the only other person, pretty much Predator would have gone with Tony. Was it no? Nah, bro. Wait. No, see. So basically, Predator would have gone with Tony, Cap, Ant-Man, and Hulk. Everybody else would go on the same, exact type of pretty much missions, and they would have gone into the mission. They would have wanted time, and the mission for pretty much getting the Tesseract, basically, it would succeed. But the Hulk would have busted down the stairs and would have stopped the whole entire thing. Now, basically, for everything that would happen, Predator would be watching from a very far on a building. Basically, him knowing that he can't really go in public since he's a predator and he's an alien. So basically, he would have been watching from afar from his enhanced vision on his suit. He would have been watching this, and he would have seen basically Loki leave. He would have known about the history of the Avengers and would have said, how is that going to change, reality? And being very, anxious about that part and how it would, what would happen. But he would have been cut off guard when Tony looked at him to the mic saying, did you know where the Tesseract went? Basically him saying, Loki got it. He teleported away. What'd you guys do to the timeline? Basically, pretty much them being completely, shocked. Now, basically, they would have still gone onto the same mission, and basically, through that, they would have gone to pretty much, what was it? They would have gone to basically another timeline. Basically, them going back to the shield area, or the pretty much camp where pretty much Cap's thing was. Now, they time traveled there, but pretty much Predator time traveled there. Now, basically, Predator went down and he saw the pin particles, but he used his camouflage mode to actually grab some pin particles, some extra ones for himself, and he went back in time. Now, basically, he went back in time a couple thousand years to another timeline. Basically, the year where the modified Predators, or Alpha, was born, and he was modified. Because Alpha, with him, he was born modified, and he was born modified. His mother was experimented on. He was born modified, and then he was upgraded by nanotech and bionics and stuff like that. So basically, pretty much, Predator would have gone to Alpha's pretty much testing room or baby crib testing room type of thing with this camouflage mode on, and basically looking at Alpha about to stab him. But he would have thought about how it would change his time with Endgame, and what would change if he died. And basically, he would have thought about how time travel really works, but he would have done it because Alpha hasn't done anything wrong in this timeline. So he goes back another timeline about doing Endgame and watches Alpha get killed, because pretty much Predator was never told Alpha was killed, and Predator never knew Alpha died. So basically, Predator looked at Alpha and said, well, that's it. And pretty much he used another little bit of, pretty much pin particles of time travel way back, right when pretty much the team was about to leave with the Tesseract, and they came out to modern time. Now, basically, with Nebula was still switched out, And the evil Nebula still, brought Thanos and everybody else back to the main timeline. Now they fought, and Thanos showed up. Now, pretty much the ship, pretty much Thanos would have blown down everything, and basically Predator was able to get out the way, and was able to pretty much he landed right near the area where Clint was. And basically, him and Clint were running down the tubes, and pretty much everything, pretty much with the Infinity Gauntlet. Basically, Clint telling Predator to take the Infinity Gauntlet. Predator would have got the Infinity Gauntlet running a lot more faster, using his increased, Predator speed, him grabbing Clint and piggyback riding him, or giving him a piggyback ride, and him jumping with his super increased strength upwards onto pretty much the platform. Now basically, he would have looked, and basically the Nebulas and the Gamoras would have shown up, basically them going on a shooting war for the Infinity Gauntlet. Predator would have seen this, and he would have activated his shoulder gauntlet, or his shoulder lasers, to pretty much shoot the old evil Nebula in the head and killing her instantly. Now basically, he would have put his, cannon away and would have said, "There, problem solved." Basically, him running off and letting go of Bart, basically grabbing the goblet and splitting. Now, basically, he would have ran off, and he would have eventually came across pretty much Iron Man, Cap, and Thor, and basically he would have seen Cap and Thor basically fighting against Thanos. Now, basically, he would have seen them all running towards Thanos, and he would have joined in. Basically, him following after him, saying, "Let's get this show on the road." Basically, him having double-sided, or like both wrist with his Predator blades, pretty much getting ready, and pretty much they went toe to toe with Thanos. They fought. Pretty much a crazy action scene started to play, and basically Predator made a few very, very deep, gnarly cuts into Thanos' chest, legs, arms, and even his face. And pretty much having a way more deeper 3 line scar into Thanos' face. Thanos saw, Predator as a pretty much a liability, and grabbed Predator and threw him down to the ground and started to pound him down, and eventually broke most of the bones in Predator's chest. Grabbed Predator and threw him like a rag doll into a bunch of concrete, knocking Predator out for the rest of the fight. Now, since Predator was knocked out, pretty much Tony thought he was dead. Basically, since Predator was kicked down so hard, and he heard so many bones break. So basically, he went all out, and they were so close to taking down Thanos. But Thanos got the upper hand and took them all out, and was about to finish off Cap. And basically, when Cap got back up, basically all the rest of the team, or pretty much the Snap, worked at the beginning, and they started. Now, basically, doing everything, they would have, started it. And basically, they would have gone an all-out war, and Predator would have woken up, seeing basically, seeing Tony wake him up, saying, "Are you okay?" Basically, Predator would have tried to move, but he felt too much pain, and we said, pretty much saying, "If I don't make it out of here alive, take my body to my ship. Go to one of my chemical places in my ship, and look at BX2. You'll find something that would help me." And pretty much Predator dies. Now, basically, Tony is sad about this, and basically gets ready to fight. Now, basically, they start going toe to toe, and Thanos pretty much sees Tony about to snap his fingers, when out of nowhere, Predator jumps in, grabbing the Infinity Gauntlet off of Tony's wrist and snapping his fingers. Now, basically, Predator dies. Even though Predator was already injured, he was definitely about to die after taking the power of the Infinity Gauntlet. He died, and basically he fell into the ground, and basically he said his last words to Tony, basically saying, "You've been the best friend to me. You have been better than my mother and father were to me. You're my best friend, and I'm glad that I was able to spend this time on Earth with you. I'm really, really happy." Basically, him dying there, for real. And basically, they would have seen Predator die, and basically Tony would have been crying over him. And basically, that would be the end, and Tony wouldn't die since Tony still had a kid to come after. So basically, Tony Stark wouldn't die, and basically, that's how it would change. And basically, I'm gonna leave it off here, guys, and I'll see you guys in part 3. Part 3, guys, I may be bringing back Alpha and Predator, but I might just be starting a new Predator or introducing a new Predator. See you guys later. Bye. And as always, guys, have a blessed day.